Hello friends I made this for. My name is Lauren and today, excuse me, today I want to talk about toxic spirituality again. If this is your first time here, hi, hello, how are you? I usually talk about astrology through the tarot, do tarot tips, art ritual, blah, blah, blah. I also like to talk about toxic spirituality, so that's what we're talking about today. If you're a returning subscriber, I love you. You're so special. I mean that. But yeah, so a few days ago I talked about the honest grifter, someone who grifts people but honestly believes in their abilities, essentially. Someone who has good intentions but is not checking themselves. Today, I want to talk about the toxic spiritual concept of low vibration. So, let me start by saying this. This is not my first time recording this video. I had a video all lined up, but I decided to not go with that one because I start the video talking about my experience with this terminology and how it was harmful to me. And this time I really think it's important to focus on why this is toxic outside of my own experience, as well as giving some options to replace it with. Because the truth is, most of y'all are not going to watch a long video for that long. And I totally respect and understand that. So let's actually get into the meat and potatoes rather than my anecdotal evidence. So here's the deal. There is one thing we need to get in first. And if you are not aware, or you're just a baby witch or starting to get into your own spiritual experience, your own spiritual way of being, I want to start by phrasing what this term means and kind of the history behind it. So low and high vibration has been a concept that I have known since becoming a spiritual person, leaving Christianity and a lot of those concepts behind and opting for something different that just felt more in alignment with my personal belief systems. Now, low and high vibration being this concept of everything in the world is vibrating at different frequencies, and thus some of those frequencies are better than others, right? So this can go to the vibration of your water, the vibration of your food. Is it, animals that you're ingesting? Are they cared for? Are they not? That was one thing for me in becoming a vegan for a while, was I don't want to ingest the suffering of another animal. That would be a low vibration, right? So this could also be attributed to your thoughts. How you think is either high vibration or low vibration. And that is a problem. That's where it starts to get toxic. When we look at the world through this binary, which spirituality needs to be disbinaried. There's a lot of binaries, whether we're talking about masculine versus feminine, another video for another time, the evils of the pharmaceutical company, again, another video, another time. All of these things are in a very binary sense of seeing the world. So very black and white. You are either high vibration or low vibration. People are either raising your vibration or lowering your vibration. So why is this problematic? So on the surface, at the time when I started watching spirit science or kind of getting into the top, these different topics of spirituality, this binary made a lot of sense to me, especially someone growing up in Christianity with the idea of sin, living in sin, or living in, you're either saved or you're a sinner, you're going to hell, right? Christianity has a very strong binary, unless you're a Catholic and therefore believe in purgatory. As a Southern Baptist, we don't really believe in that concept. It's either salvation or hell forever. Very binary thinking, very high or low vibrational thinking. So this wasn't necessarily a red flag, this whole idea of the binary at the time. But the thing about looking at the world through this binary and us saying that, okay, thinking about good things like gratitude and thankfulness, that's high vibration. And this is really interesting because, of course, having gratitude is not necessarily a toxic thing, right? I totally agree with that concept. But this, the concept of gratitude being good, it is great to live in gratitude. My husband and I, we like to pray over our food and give a little thanks before we consume. I think that practice is great. But the problem with high and low vibration is with this high concept, there's also the polarity of low vibration. But Lauren, why is that toxic? Because ultimately, if we look at things through this binary, being afraid becomes low vibration. Living in fear, as some spiritual QAnoners would say, that is a low vibration. Being sad is a low vibration. So then the concept of depression, anxiety, those are low vibration. And thus, you want to avoid those feelings. What happens, and I have a background of being an SEL instructor. Our SEL teacher I taught in grade school, blah, blah, blah. That's another story. Think about emotions when we observe them in this black and white binary as being good or bad. We tend to suppress the bad emotions. And when we start suppressing our emotions rather than identifying them, feeling them, and allowing them to flow, but of course, if it's low vibration, why would you let it flow through you? That's going to lower your vibe. And then how are you going to manifest? It becomes a thing where we are repressing a very natural emotion, especially right now as the world is going through a very difficult time. So there's a lot of reasons why this is problematic. This is, when we start to try to resist emotions, we unfortunately get into a space where we're not healthily processing very real and at times incredibly valid emotions, right? We are trying to bypass those things because we don't want them to hold us down, right? So that's incredibly problematic. We're not allowing our emotions to do their natural thing, which is just flow through and out of the way. Just so you know, this is my sleep shirt. Stop looking at the stains. Leave me alone. Thank you. So this is the problem right on the surface of this thinking. Now, another reason why this is super problematic is because high vibration and low vibration, like all of these things in air quotes, they're not physically measurable. And now there might be a lot of hippies out there who want to argue that yes, you can measure vibration and music and sound and vibration of color waves and things like that. When we're talking about high and low vibration as it relates to our inner energies or our emotions or who we are as people, it's not measurable. And in fact, it's something that is incredibly easy to manipulate. What's high vibe to one person, let's say you're in a group of people who believe that polyamory and having lots of sex freely is high vibrational. One person could make that argument. And then the next person can say, no, you shouldn't be having all this sex. You have to choose one. It's one twin flame. If you're having all this sex, it's lowering your vibration. Like, these concepts can be manipulated by anyone depending on their point of view. So that's a second thing that makes this concept really toxic, is that it's easily manipulated by those around you and their opinions on what high and low vibration is. This also goes back to like the purity culture that is in the spiritual community that's very much, as someone who grew up in a megachurch, is very, very similar and familiar to the concept, again, of being either living in sin or being saved, right? This purity of you want to like cleanse yourself of sin is not too far off from the concept of, well, I have to keep my vibration high. I have to keep my thoughts pure in that high vibration, so that I don't lower my vibe, because I might get sick. It'll cause me to be depressed. I'll develop disease in the body. That will be another conversation about toxic spirituality, because ultimately this fear of the low vibration puts us in a place that we definitely don't want to be. So what can we do? Yeah, what can we do to replace this language? Because ultimately, the other issue with this language is it doesn't identify the problem. It's a blanket statement that can be kind of viewed in any which way, depending on the lens that you're using. And it negates allowing us to actually use language to identify what might be the problem. So when we want to replace low vibration in that language, my intuitive move is to say, how can we just note the problem? So for example, instead of saying low vibration, you can say, well, this situation doesn't feel safe. This situation doesn't fit my needs right now. This conversation is not something I want to focus on at the moment. This doesn't feel like something I want to partake in or be a part of, because I have a different focus right now. There's different ways that we can identify the problem without actually belittling others, because that's another thing that this becomes. This language can be used to other people. It can become this idea of, well, you know, that person is low vibration. I don't want to associate with them. Well, what is it about them? Because low vibration could be anything. Low vibration could be attributed by some folks as being, well, that person's vaccinated, they're low vibration. Because I have come across it, friends. It's cuckoo banana bread. This person believes this, so that makes them low vibration. This person drinks beer, so that makes them low vibration. This becomes a way of dismissing folks and just saying that, well, that person is not my cup of tea, so I'm not going to associate with them. This person is low vibration. When we could say, I'm not trying to be around people drinking right now. It's totally fair. It's a fair thing. If you don't want to drink and you don't want to be around people drinking, you got it, fam. There's also this idea of like, oh, this person is a abuser. I don't want to be around them. If we were just saying, well, they're low vibration, others around you might not understand what that means. But if you were to say this person is an abuser, this person is a womanizer, I don't like how they talk, I don't want to be around that, that is fine. But when we talk about low and high vibration in regards to folks, that's where it becomes problematic, because we begin dismissing folks without really giving a good story to it. And of course, you don't need to give a good story to it. But here's where I get into my anecdotal bullshit. Because I am someone with mental illness, and this has been a term used on me that really fucked up my mental health. Now here's a little disclaimer here. I like to consider myself a mental health advocate. I have mental illness. I'm on medication. I go to therapy. I do all of these things to better myself, because I tried to use spirituality and hiking and mantras and yoga every day and drinking lots of water and eating all fruits and veggies and taking all the natural herbs, and it just wasn't enough. That sometimes works for other folks, and that's really great. I love that other folks can use that as their tools. Not knocking, no, not yucking your yum, as it were. But what I am saying is some of this thought process around high and low vibration made it kind of scary for me to take medication again, because it was also really ingrained early into my spiritual journey that medication was like not good for me, and it was making me susceptible to this, that, and the third. Story time about that another day. But what you do need to know is, before I get into this story, I am going to talk about some things, this anecdotal evidence, this life experience that I have, that it might be really triggering to other folks. So if topics around mental health and mental health struggles, intrusive thoughts is something that's going to get you and your feelings, bye, that's fine. Get out of here. You don't need to be here. Take care of yourself. That's the most important thing. Take care of yourself. So how has low vibration negatively affected me? Well, so as I said, my journey into spirituality is also around the time that I cut all my medication, for the most part, at least for my mental health, for my depression and anxiety. I cut all of that shit cold turkey. Don't do that. Don't do that. And I understand, because at the same time, I had been let down by the mental health community. That is a big reason why I ended up getting into the spiritual shit a little bit more. Savvy Writes Books actually did a deep dive into Teal Swan that I really appreciated, because that's a YouTuber who has a very, like, I would say, worldly view, and is very open to things, and also understands that a lot of people get into, she said on her show, people get into these spiritual communities such as Teal Swan or any of the others because other things have failed them. So I was very much in that camp. Things had failed me, and I really was trying to use alternatives to heal myself and do all of that. For multiple reasons, the alternatives were not supporting me. And that's not going to happen to everyone, but it happened to me. So the truth is, I've kind of been in a weird mental crisis, or a mental space, since I was off my medication in like 2011, 2010, 2011. But my mental health had reached a crisis point in 2020, like many of us. And this is where I'm going to get into my story, so please leave if you're uncomfortable. So many of us struggle with depression and anxiety coming into 2020, and it got worse because of the pandemic, and that's a very reasonable thing. We were collectively going through a lot of trauma. I have had trauma. It, of course, got worse when I was teaching because I just wasn't fully equipped to go into the community that I was serving. And that's not that school's fault. It's not that. It's just circumstances are tough. Point blank, period. So secondhand trauma, things like that, I was starting to deal with. I'm really struggling with my mental health because of lack of sleep, because of nightmares all the time. It was tough. And working from home, like teaching from home, I was really struggling with my mental health, but really working on it in a very real way, because I knew something wasn't right, but I didn't realize how far I was going with my mental health and how much help I really needed on a professional level. So that's the stage. That's my baseline. Someone that I know who really truly loves me and cares for me, I was talking to them, and they ended up saying something really hurtful. And I know they like barely remember even saying this to me because I brought it up later. And it's pretty intense to learn that something that affects you so deeply is not even known to that person, right? But in this conversation, as I was talking about how scared I am and like how frustrated and overwhelmed, this friend that loves and cares about me, said that I am low vibration, that I was living in fear, and that I make a lot of my decisions out of fear. Again, I was in a mental health crisis and I didn't know it. This was the worst thing to have said to me at that time, because I was very much on the edge. So this is the edge. I'm right here. It sent me over. I was doing everything I could to work on my mental health, and suddenly it all got incredibly worse. Suddenly I was having intrusive thoughts where I was blaming myself for not being happy. I was blaming myself for how my mental health was, and the thoughts got really, really dark. I had so many intrusive thoughts. I had to let my now husband know, and I got the help that I needed. Thank God. I think back at that time and I'm like, oh man, good thing I didn't watch any Teal Swan videos. Or good thing I told someone so I didn't actually do something where I felt, yeah, I'm low vibration and nothing I am doing is raising my vibration or making my brain work better. So maybe I should just... That intrusive thought was constant for a while. And I share this to say, I know that so many folks that use high and low vibration are not intending it to do harm. But when we take these spiritual concepts that are very black and white and lack nuance, they lack any structure, they lack any like real basis, they can be used to weaponize in a way to harm people. Or if you're saying that to someone with a lot of mental illness who's about to be in a crisis state, we can actually push them to a place we don't want them to go. Again, I know this person loves me. I know this person would never want me to harm myself. But ultimately, they had zero idea, zero awareness of the impact that their words had in the moment and would have going forward. That is to say, in the spiritual community, there is a lot of talk about we need to raise consciousness, raise vibration. And the problem with using certain terminologies, such as high and low vibration, is if it doesn't serve everyone, and this is from Lindsay Mack. I really love her as a teacher and really appreciate this reflection. If it doesn't serve all of us, if it's not that expansive to really contain all of us and hold space for that magic, does it really even serve any of us to use it? Because if this language can so easily be weaponized and so easily impact people in a way that is incredibly negative and incredibly hurtful, do we need to use this language anymore? For me personally, I don't use this language. I think it's really belittling. I think it's really harmful. And I know people don't agree with that. And that's fine. But if you watch this video and it could at least see where I'm coming from and maybe understand why this might not be of service to your community or just communities at large, I hope this made a difference and hope that it can at least make an impact on who you use this language with. I know that this language can be very comforting. It feels so good when someone says, "You're so high vibe." But if we look at the opposite and say, you're being low vibration right now. This is why it just doesn't make sense to continue using the language, because it others us, it denounces our validity easily without really any question. It can shut us down when we don't need that. Ultimately, everyone has the right to say whatever they want and use whatever language they feel is supportive for them. I'm not saying, hey, you shouldn't use it at all. But what I am saying is that this language is very often used to manipulate. It very easily harms others. And if that's the case, why do we use it? Why stay with this concept if it can harm folks? If it is easily used to manipulate folks, why are we still using it? Anyway, thank you for listening. Thank you for listening to this rant. As I said, I'm on medication. I got the help that I need. I still use Reiki and other, I use art as ritual for myself to translate my emotions and to work through that. But I would never tell a client, yeah, don't take medication, just come to me. Oh yeah, don't trust big pharma, just come to me. Oh, you don't need a therapist, I can help you. You know? Everything is a balance. We can use both. If we need it, if it's important, we can try a little bit of this, a little bit of that to help ourselves and support ourselves intuitively. So anyway, thank you for listening. I hope this was supportive and makes sense as far as like, this is why I do this, why I don't do this. As a spiritual person, I think it's really important that we continue to evaluate so much of what we do, but especially language, being that I just had about a year ago, a pretty hard time with my mental health. A little over a year ago now. But I'm better. I'm thankful that you are here. I'm thankful that you are listening. And please remember, if you're having a hard time, to definitely reach out to someone around you. There is no shame in getting help. There's no shame in getting support that you need. You are not low vibe if you are anxious or dealing with depression. These are very, very real things that are sometimes outside of our control. Your thoughts do not create your reality. You are not your negative thoughts or feelings. I love you. Please make sure to take care of yourself, drink some water, and I will see you for another video. I hope this was supportive. Make sure to click on any of these things popping up around my headspace. Like, comment, subscribe if you want to. Links to the work that I do down below. And of course, if you like the video, share it with someone who you think might feel supported by these words or might just need a new phrase. Anyway, I love you again, and I'll talk to you next time, friends. Bye-bye.